They say the older you get, the less you care about how you're perceived. That certainly seems to be the case for Lorde, as expressed through her latest album, Virgin. As she seems to release albums every 4 years, there has been much anticipation for this one, especially since the last one, Solar Power, wasn't well received. I am more of a casual Lorde listener, only familiar with 4 of her songs: Tennis Court, Team, Royals, and Greenlight, which I recently found out could possibly be about Jack Antonoff, of all people, allegedly. The things I find out through chronically online girl explanations. But anyway, I like those 4 tracks enough to now want to take a stab at listening to a full-length body of work of hers. So yes, I am a virgin when it comes to listening to a full Lorde album. And as I haven't listened to any of her other albums in their entirety, I can't compare Virgin to any of them as some fans were doing in the comments sections. I can only rate Virgin based on its content and context. So, let's get right into it then, shall we? This should be a rather short but concise review of Virgin, as it's only 34 minutes and 11 tracks. And then we shall move on to Addison Rae's self-titled debut, Addison, which pleasantly surprised me for someone who used to do half-baked choreography on TikTok only 4 years ago. At first listen of Virgin, I thought a lot of the songs sounded very similar, and there was an uneasiness to them, felt quite dense for a summer record, and just a lot of references I wasn't familiar with. And then I watched quite a few of her press tour interviews, Apple Music interview being among those, and she did confirm that the palette of the album was stripped down and reused, hence why a lot of the songs sound similar. She said she wanted to make songs for the present. She wasn't trying to be innovative or futuristic. This was more of a release, which is why it's called Virgin. She was giving us the purest version of herself, or as close to the purest, or honest, or stripped down, bare bones version of herself. No holds barred. Hence, the album cover art, which is an Xray of her pelvis, and we can even see her IUD, the zipper of her jeans, and belt buckle. Bears a striking resemblance to the cover art of the Rolling Stones' Sticky Fingers. We, the consumers of her music, are seeing right through and into her, quite literally and figuratively. Stephen Colbert described this album cover art as, quote, the most revealing and least erotic photo, end quote.
The palette of the album is actually quite simple. We use a lot of the same stuff over and over, and I thought of all the sounds we chose, which we chose so carefully, as my voices. These machines are singing and crying and talking, or laughing or whatever in the same way that we do. So
the album is also a juxtaposition of kinetic or physical music and intimate lyrics. It is solitary group music, silent disco.
And I do think that my music has something kind of, it's sort of built for the solitary listener, I think, in some ways, but with the kinesis of a bunch of other people around. Yeah, I know. I'm like, I don't think it's rave. I think it's like some sort of party, but I don't know what. It's very kinetic. It's very physical.
Very physical.
But I don't know where the you play it.
Hammer, first track and mission statement of the album, starts out very in your face with synths that sounds very much like a distorted voice, which Lorde said in an interview was the musical emulation of how she felt ovulating for the first time in 10 years. Very primal, powerful, playful, and raw. Yeah, you can't make a song about getting off birth control after 10 years and wanting to crush everything in your line of sight like a hammer and then retreat. You have to keep that same edgy and confrontational energy throughout the album. And she does by following Hammer up with What Was That?, which at the time of release was predicted to be the song of the summer. The song is good, don't get me wrong. Makes me tear up every time I listen to it. I can't explain why. Perhaps it's the sheer size of the people who showed up to see her at Washington Square Park. You can't buy that kind of dedication. That many people showing up for you, that means you're doing something right. Or you're controlling them. Anyway, despite all of this, the song doesn't strike me as Song of the Summer worthy, in my opinion. And in fact, there are better songs on the record, which I'm getting to, but let's discuss What Was That first. It's very classically Lorde, with the percussion heavy on the synths, which is why she chose that as her lead single. The music video of which was dropped the day after her impromptu performance at Washington Square Park, the footage of which made it into the music video. That performance actually caused NYPD's anti-terrorism unit to show up because of the amount of people who showed up. The things artists have to do for promotion. Also, the song was alleged to be about Jack Antonoff again, which would have been awkward if that were indeed the case because the man is married, not to mention nearly twice her age. But at the time she wrote the song in 2023, he probably wasn't married just yet. Side note, I just realized that his wife is in that new movie Honey Don't, which I just keep seeing the trailer for everywhere. However, the song is most likely about the end of her relationship with some UMG exec whom she'd been dating since 2015. It's nice to have some context for these lyrics, otherwise it feels like it's happening in a vacuum and the result is me not being able to connect with the song. The song equally feels directed at fans as well for their reception of her previous album Solar Power, which was criticized for being too happy and disconnected and not moody enough like her first two. Now that I think about it, that music video for Solar Power is very much giving Midsommar, which is terrifying. Favorite Daughter. That's actually my number one favorite on the record. Something about the song reminds me of Demi Lovato's Confident. Lorde said the melody for this song was completed before she came up with the lyrics. For this song, much like a few other songs on the record, like Shapeshifter, it was more about feeling what story the melody was telling before coming up with the lyrics. She said she kept this whole process of making this album very open. There was no set plan. The only thing she was certain of from the beginning of making the album was elements of physicality. She wanted people to be able to move to it. The technology element of the album came later. For Favorite Daughter, she said it took her a long time to write because it's obviously about her mom, whom she loves very much, and all she ever wanted to do was make her mom proud since school. And that created this feeling of never being enough, which bled over into her career. And it was all self-imposed, wanting to succeed in order to not necessarily repay her mom for all the sacrifices, but treat her to gifts and experiences she perhaps could not have afforded otherwise. Writing this song has also been cathartic for her. She said she's been able to have a lot more empathy and understanding for her mom and her mom's mom, basically the lineage of women who have made her what she is. Shapeshifter, she said that she always had a feeling that the song was going to be about using sex for validation, just twisting herself into all these different forms, the siren, the saint, the magic 8, just to get people to like her, whether romantically or platonically. Reminds me of Megan Thee Stallion's line from WAP, quote, "Switch my wig, make him feel like he cheatin'," end quote. And I know the context is different, but if that line is isolated, it's exactly the same as being a shapeshifter. Lorde said this one was inspired by Tracy Emin's artwork, Everyone That I Ever Slept With, which is a pop-up tent embroidered with the names of everyone Tracy's ever slept with, whether it was romantically or platonically, like just shared a bed with. Current Affairs is a sample of Dex Dapp's Morning Love. The lyrics and meaning of the song went right over my head, honestly. Whether I'm reviewing an album or not, I try to figure out what the artist is getting at because obviously it isn't always obvious. I have to read in between the lines, and I'm usually pretty good at that. With this song and this album in general, though, a lot of it went over my head initially. Like I said, a lot of the references are specific. For example, Baby's Alright, Canal Street, Do You Have the Stones? The first two are specific to New York, and the third is the English version of Do You Have the Guts? Anyway, I didn't want to look up what the song means, but I ended up going on Reddit, and someone explained that the song is basically about being heartbroken about someone, but being embarrassed about it, that whenever family or friends inquire what is wrong, she just says she's sad about the current affairs in the world. Wasn't this the track in which she also mentioned the Pamela Anderson tape as well? It's one thing to admit in an interview that you indulged in the source of someone else's pain and embarrassment, and it's another to put it in a song. I wouldn't have understood the reference if I didn't watch The Swiftologist and Nicole Rafi. Shout out to them, although they don't need any mentions. I just don't keep up with celebrity gossip in that way anymore. David, last track on the album. This one was inspired by Michelangelo's David and David and the Goliath. She touched on this in her BBC interview if you want to check it out. It's obviously linked below, but the concept of this one was about power dynamics throughout her career and how with this track she was just letting it rip, carving away anything that wasn't Ella, which is her government name, by the way. But you already knew that if you're a fan of her music. But this was analogous to how Michelangelo said in sculpting David, he carved away all that wasn't David. Again, with the bare bones reference, shedding everything that isn't her. This is my third favorite on the album. What I find interesting is that the song has this distorted voice sounding synth towards the end of the song, very similar to the one at the beginning of Hammer, the first track on the album. Full circle moment there. Brilliant. Man of the Year and Grown Woman are about exploring gender identity. Let's start with Man of the Year because I find it interesting that over the past 20 years and maybe even beyond, but we'll focus on 20 years because that's what I've been present for. But female pop artists have expressed various iterations of this in their music, and the double standard of it all. I think of Taylor's The Man, Beyonce's If I Were a Boy, Sierra's Like a Boy. By the way, I find it interesting, again, that both music videos, the Beyonce and the Sierra ones, which are about the same concept, were both in black and white. Anyway, those are just a few songs that come to mind. I'm sure there are plenty more, and please be sure to drop those in the comments section. But I just now realized after watching the music video that Lorde's Met Gala outfit for this year, 2025, was a nod to Man of the Year, where her chest is taped down with gray tape. Little side note, she references Man of the Year in Hammer with the lyrics, "Some days I'm a woman, some days I'm a man." She references her first album, Pure Heroine, in David, and references current affairs in What Was That? Which I always think is cool when artists do that. Connect the songs or the albums, thereby creating a world, or better, a cinematic universe. But let's get back to the lyrics. Some days I'm a woman, some days I'm a man. I don't understand. I understand being in your masculine energy as a woman. I am very much a tomboy since childhood and have always been nudged, whether it's by my mom or friends, to dress more feminine, which I do enjoy every now and then, but I have to be in a specific mood for that or specific occasion. But every other time, I choose comfort. Sweats, boyfriend jeans, t-shirts, sneakers, flats. Sundresses are cool too. They are very uncomplicated and cute. Lorde has been criticized for her lack of style or inability to slay, which to me translates to the fact that she doesn't adhere to this rigid standard of femininity. She's said on Fashion Neurosis that black has always been her preferred color as a New Zealander, and now she's added metallic, silver, and the occasional red to her color palette. Anyway, all of us, men, women, non-binary folk, have both masculine and feminine energies, I believe. But to say that as a woman, that I am a man who is biologically different from me is pretty wild. I don't know what it's like to be a man, and I don't want to know. I can empathize, though. By the way, she attended the GQ Man of the Year award ceremony in 2023 and began writing for this song the very next day, she said. She said she had worn a very feminine outfit she describes as a hot girl dress and felt very out of place for an event titled Man of the Year. GRWM stands for Grown Woman. The whole time I was thinking it was Get Ready With Me, though Lorde has said that she was in fact getting ready when she came up with the concept for the song, and actually recorded a voice memo for it. I like that in the end, there's no clear resolution or arrival. She's still searching for this grown woman. I can relate. I feel like a 30-something-year-old teenager at times. Though time isn't real, I am in my 30s according to the man-made calendar, so very much an adult. But the current state of affairs with the economy has me feeling like a teenager, where I'm relying on my mom more than I should at this stage. Don't feel sorry for me. That's not the point. The point is that is just a fact of life right now, but it won't always be like that. This is just a phase. Broken Glass. The Girl So Confusing remix was the perfect way to ease us into this very sensitive phase of her life. Lorde said this was the last song to go on the album and she struggled with whether to expose herself in this way, but in the end, she did. And again, it goes with the theme of the album. Clear Blue. This title is a dead giveaway. The song is about having unprotected relations and then holding her breath while waiting for the result of that pregnancy test. If She Could See Me Now, my second fave on the album. There's a nod to Baby Bash's Sugar Sugar. Something about the song is very much giving Taylor. Final thoughts on Virgin. The album is made for a specific audience. Those who get it, get it. I'm definitely not the target audience for this. I think this album is one of those that required the listener to put their thinking caps on. Like I mentioned before, on my first listen, I just wasn't getting it. I'm not sure if it had something to do with the weather that day because it was a cloudy day and I felt like I was in a trance while listening to the songs. So next, I listened to a bunch of interviews as per usual, searched up the lyrics, listened to the album again. I can appreciate the album and I rate it a solid 8 out of 10. And I think Lorde is brilliant, but the album is definitely not for me. Lorde has admitted that in an interview with ABC News In Depth Australia, that this isn't for everyone. An album that requires the listener to think definitely has its place, and I do enjoy those. But for the summer, I don't want to do that much thinking when listening to a summer jam. I think this album has all the energy of very late summer, early fall, not start of summer. As I like puzzles, I kind of want to connect a few of the 7 artifacts from the visual Rolling Stone interview to the tracks and music videos on this album. In order in which they appear in the interview, the water bottle is in the Hammer music video. The 5 gum, she mentions chewing gum in the first line of Shapeshifter. The headphones and T-Rex tape on her boots are in the What Was That music video. The tape also makes an appearance in the Man of the Year music video. I don't know what is happening in that video. It's definitely out there. I do like the song though. The box of written materials has some stickers of Tracy Emin's work which inspired Shapeshifter. This entire interview felt like trying to make fetch happen. Those familiar with Mean Girls from 2004 get that reference. It just felt inauthentic to me. Everything she explained about the artifacts felt very much planned, which is totally fine, but let's not purport them as though having naturally occurred in the process of making the album when they were planned. Because the reality is, if they did occur naturally, sometimes you just may not be able to capture them on camera. There's this pressure I feel to want to prove everything with pictures and videos, and I get it, but sometimes the best proof is no proof. You're so in the moment that it doesn't occur to you to pull out your phone to capture that moment. This is just my opinion, take it with a grain of salt. One other thing that I have to mention, though it's unrelated to the album, but I have to mention it because for one, it's itching my brain and I have to scratch that itch, and for two, she mentioned it in What Was That? A Lorde and Miley Cyrus collaboration would be cool. They both seem to have quite a few things in common. Alternative therapy, for one. Miley has discussed having EMDR therapy for some trauma from being born famous, being a child star, and stage fright as well. Lorde mentions MDMA therapy in What Was That? And the therapy was equally for her stage fright, which she had had since age 5. Miley and Lorde both released albums this year, 2025, in which they each had songs dedicated to their mothers. For Miley, it was End of the World, and for Lorde, it is Favorite Daughter. And they have both stated liking to make weird music, or music that is outside of the pop complex. Alternative pop, I like to call it, because it's still pop. It's just not bubblegum. It's complex and yet has wide appeal. Speaking of wide appeal, Addison Rae's debut fits the bill. But first, what's up, beautiful people, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Yaira, better known as simply Yaya. I am proudly African, from Cameroon, born and bred. I worked for Disney for the better half of my young adult life, and more recently Whole Foods. I'm always working on leveling and glowing up, and I have a Master of Science in Journalism, which informs how I view and discuss some aspects of pop culture on this channel. And for early access to all of my upcoming videos, which you'll get to see 48 hours before everyone else, you can join my membership here on YouTube at $4.99 a month, or my Patreon at $10 a month. You also get bonus content and other perks like me going live once a week. 10737411824. Addison Rae's rebrand has been quite a sight to behold. She started out as one of the most followed people on TikTok. And then, post-pandemic, she did a movie that she got clowned for and released music that nobody cared about. She wasn't taken seriously by anyone over the age of 25 at the time. The general sentiment was that she was just a TikToker who stole other people's choreography, and she wasn't even that good. But then she disappeared from the spotlight, only being spotted by the paparazzi every now and then, perhaps planned, but nonetheless, she was seemingly offline, and when she resurfaced, it was as a feature on a Charli XCX's track. Even then, I didn't take her seriously, even though she seemingly had the backing of industry titans like Charli XCX and Lorde, the queens of alternative/hyperpop. I just thought it was yet another grift, and it wouldn't stick. But then, the album dropped and changed my perspective. Apparently, her numbers surpassed Miley's on the charts. The album's self-titled, Addison, without the Rae, because Addison Rae was the TikToker, a persona, whereas Addison is who she's always been, an artist, a performer, and now a pop star and producer as well. Addison's giving carefree, glamorous, cinematic aesthetic, which is quite specific. I don't detect anything pretentious or cringe about her new look and album. She did say the theme of the album was supposed to feel like a Libby Lou store, but for adults. Libby Lou is similar to the Bippity Boppity Boutique at the Magic Kingdom in Disney, where little girls get princess makeovers. When I did the college program, my immediate roommate worked there. Anyway, Addison is from Louisiana and also lived in Texas for a bit. Texas and Louisiana were home to Libby Lou stores, which Addison says she used to frequent when she was younger and get makeovers. This explains why the aesthetic in each video for the album is different, but has that carefree glam through a line. All the movements and choreography in her music videos for this album feel natural, as she was a cheerleader and did gymnastics prior to posting dances on TikTok. This is a no-skip album for me. Every track is perfection, though I have my favorites, which we'll discuss. She's definitely been working on her craft, and I love that for her. Diet Pepsi, first single of the album, released nearly a year prior to album release. Love that the video is in black and white. She said it's because she knew that it'll require more focus from her audience because black and white things are more difficult to watch, at least for a generation that's used to color. I personally thought it also made sense because Pepsi is dark in color. Black and white movies and pictures for me will always be classic. The chorus of Diet Pepsi sounds very similar to Tate McRae's Purple Lace Bra, although Addison did say in an interview that she didn't sample or interpolate anyone's song. All the songs on this album are original and created alongside two female producers, Elvira Enderfjard and Luca Closer, which was rare. The fact that the album was produced entirely by all females, and the fact that it was the same producers for the duration of the making of the album. I would imagine that as a young artist, being bounced around and having to work with all these different people with all your different opinions, you would end up with an album that has very little of your essence and input. And so it's great to hear that Addison had creative control of the project and worked with the same people she had chemistry with and who were also very intuitive. The best part of the song is the pause towards the end, opening of the can of Pepsi, and the notes drop down an octave. Brilliant. Also, Addison said that it was Charlie XCX who encouraged her to title the song Diet Pepsi. She was originally going to name it Backseat, but then Diet Pepsi made so much more sense, as she said she has strong memories associated with Pepsi. Her grandfather loves Pepsi, and so does she. Sidebar, I've always been a Coca-Cola girl. I am from Cameroon, as I previously mentioned, and that's what we had over there when I was growing up. It wasn't until I came to the US when I was like, wait, there's a substitute for Coca-Cola? Rad. Then I had some and just decided to stick with Coca-Cola. New York and Money is Everything are very similar. Things get interesting around the minute and 50-second mark of New York. What is it with party girl music and chewing gum? Anyway, this is the perfect first track on the album. Sets up mighty expectations, and boy did she deliver. Money is Everything was the second song made. It low-key reminds me of T.I.'s Whatever You Like, the way she rap sings the Pocket Full of Sunshine line. Aquamarine, third song Addison, Luca, and Elvira made. It's teased at the beginning of the Diet Pepsi music video. Reminds me of Janet Jackson's Rock With You. And the video looks like something out of an old, perhaps French movie. And then I found out it was filmed in Paris. The dance element towards the end of the video is right on brand and perfect for TikTok. Headphones on. This just works because it's 90s sounding. So immediately gives nostalgia, which has been very trendy for the last couple of years. What with the current state of affairs seeming to get worse by the month. People, especially millennials and Gen Z, are just longing for a simpler, fun time from 10, 20, maybe 30 years ago. And then there's the music video. Simple, and yet there are three standout things working in its favor. The neon pink hair, the strange-looking horse by the beach, and then the fact that it's filmed in Iceland. Not many music videos for American pop stars are filmed in Iceland that I'm aware of anyway. And also, I wasn't overstimulated by the visuals. Fame is a gun. This title is very much giving sympathy is a knife. But anyway, this song was low-key inspired by Sheila E.'s glamorous life, Addison said in her Apple Music interview. High fashion. I remember hearing it for the first time with my head tilted like, this isn't going how I expected. But strangely, I like it. And the title of the song and how sort of off-putting it sounds makes sense. Addison had said that the title didn't mean high fashion as in haute couture. She meant it as in being high on fashion, hence the lyrics, I don't need your drugs, I'd rather get high fashion. Her reference for this song was some quote from Pinterest that read, let's get high on fashion. And the video very much reflects that. It looks like it's filmed in Louisiana from the outside shots. Full circle moments for her as that's home. She's also wearing these outfits which seem to be very her, while also swirling around in some white substance which seems to be powdered sugar from her beignets. Also, I'm going to assume the title was a nod to the outfits she was photographed in by the paparazzi, where I'm going to assume people thought she was on something, because why else would she be dressing that way? It's hard to believe that one of the previous versions of this song was a ballad. Speaking of ballads, In the Rain and Times Like This are as close to ballads as we got on this album. And I'm not mad at it. The songs are sentimental without the sadness. Addison described them and the entire album for that matter as, quote, a very optimistic approach to the hard times in life, end quote. Side note, I find it interesting that the music video for Times Like This, which was the last full song written for the album, started off with color and turned black and white. Whereas with Diet Pepsi, it was shot in black and white for most of the video and turned to color, much like in The Wizard of Oz. Back to ballads and sadness. Addison said she doesn't know how to cheer someone up when they're sad, which I'm assuming she then projects onto others because in the same breath, she said she doesn't like being sad because she feels like it's a burden for others to have to try to cheer her up. And I can understand where she's coming from with that, but the older I get, I realize that when someone is sad, sometimes you don't have to say anything to make them feel better. Sometimes all you have to do is just sit there with them in silence, in their sadness, and just listen to them venting or crying. That's it. And that's all I got. Like, share, subscribe, join my Patreon, and I'll see you next week with a review of SZA's SOS and Lana, and then Sabrina Carpenter's Man's Best Friend. And then I have a bit of a surprise and vibe shift for the fall. Let's just say if you're a Swiftie and or a fan of albums with black and white cover art from the last 20 years, you will love this new series. So again, subscribe and bye!